Should the NHL consider realignment with the Coyotes moving to Utah? Gary Bettman and the NHL admitted that there really wasn't any time to put any consideration into realignment because of how fast and how quickly everything had to come together to accommodate the move. But now we have an interesting article from The Athletic looking at how a new realigned NHL could look like. We'll take a look and see what you think coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, I want to take a look today and talk about the possibility of NHL realignment. Now, I did a video back in, I don't want to say maybe 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, talking about potential expansion. Once the Coyotes moved to Utah was confirmed and officially announced, there was a lot of talk, well, what's going to come next? Because there were certainly rumors for the past year or so that Salt Lake City, Utah was very interested in getting a team, that there was the ownership group there led by Ryan Smith that wanted to make that happen, and they were very interested for when the NHL would expand again. But now they have a team. They're not going to be involved with expansion. So I went through and looked at what are some other cities that we've heard rumors about where there's ownership groups that are interested. Like we talked about Atlanta. You know, there's a third go possibly going to happen there. There's multiple groups that want to put a team in Atlanta right now. We know there's a group in Houston. We know Quebec City's been interested for an extended time. We know Alex Muriel is going to have an opportunity to reactivate the Coyotes in 5 years or less. So, you know, looking at what the NHL could look like down the road, we looked at a 36-team NHL that might be, 5, 7, 8, 10 years down the road in the future and said, okay, well, if we add extra teams, should we really consider a realignment? And I gave you my thoughts on how that would look. So this is a little bit different because this is based on the 32 teams that we have here today. So Ian Mendez, writer for The Athletic, normally mainly covers the Ottawa Senators, but does do some other work nationally for these types of topics. Put together a good article that I thought was interesting, and we'll take a look here, and I want to see what everyone thinks. So ultimately, the playoff format could ultimately get changed. How this would work is it would break each conference into 4 divisions. Of course, right now there's 4 divisions total, 2 in the East, 2 in the West. It would simplify that down further, be 8 divisions with 4 teams in each division. Okay, so how that would work was the teams in your division, you would all play 6 times a season. So that would be how it would go. And then, of course, with having 4 divisions in each conference, there would be a rotation where from year to year it would change. But some of your other divisions in your conference, you'd end up playing 4 times. And then everybody else in the NHL, you'd play twice. So obviously 6 times against 3 other opponents in your division is only 18 games. So you'd have one other division in your conference where you'd play 4 times, and then everybody else you'd play at least twice, in some of the other conference teams 3 times to level it out to make it an even 82 game schedule, of course. So playoff format, you'd have some options. You could either say each division winner makes it, and then the next top 4 teams in their conference, or you could just say division winners don't necessarily matter, go 1 through 8. Like, you could do this in a variety of ways. Either way, you'd still have the same number of teams making the playoffs, but it would certainly create some different rivalries, put some focus on some different head-to-head matchups, and we'll see where things go down the road if the NHL does consider this. But here we are. So let's take a look. Let's start with the Western Conference. Obviously, the West would start with one division having St. Louis, Chicago, Minnesota, and Detroit. Now, I'm suspecting that the Red Wings may not be thrilled with technically being in the West. I think they'd be fine playing these other division teams that many times. The travel there wouldn't be that bad. The time difference isn't that bad. But obviously playing more games against teams further west might not be the best for them. I'm sure they'd be grumpy with that to some extent. But really, if you look at the map, when it comes to teams like Detroit and like Nashville, like, they really should not be Western Conference teams, but somebody's going to be there, and that's kind of, geographically, like, your tipping point for who's furthest, in that direction. There's not a great deal of difference there, but that's one division. So St. Louis, Chicago, Minnesota, Detroit. Another one would have the new Utah team lumped in with Vegas, Colorado, and Dallas. Now, down the road, if Houston gets a team, I think you'd have to realign here again, because if you add potentially like another 4 teams, you could have a case in the East and the West where you have 2 divisions of 4, 2 divisions of 5. Maybe Houston joins that group, hard to say, or you change things up again. But for right now, with 32, you have Dallas, Colorado, Vegas, Utah. That to me makes a lot of sense. That'd be a really tough division for that new Utah team to be in. Obviously, Vegas, Colorado, Dallas, all really strong teams right now. You'd have an all-Canadian Western division of Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, and Winnipeg. So that's another one. Now, of course, it's, I know in the past when looking at that first one, the St. Louis, Chicago, anytime you talk about realignment, if you don't have like the Blues, Hawks, Wild all together, a lot of people don't like that. There is some good rivalry and good, teams that they've been playing each other since the days of like the Norris division, for example. But in this latest one with the four Western Canadian teams together, then you don't have that Vancouver, Seattle interdivision games, which is, they don't really have a rivalry yet, but the hope is that they're so close proximity that they will develop one. It would be nice to see them have a playoff series or something, but for right now, they would not be in the same division under this format. Seattle would then get lumped in with the three California teams of Anaheim, LA, and San Jose. So to me, that does make a lot of good sense, but at the same time, it's not perfect either. I'm not really sure that you can come up with a scenario that everybody would agree on and say is completely perfect no matter what we do here. I think there's going to be people that don't like it and people that do. So that's how the West would look. In the Eastern Conference, you could have, again, 4 divisions of 4. You'd have Boston lumped in with the metro area New York team, so Rangers, Islanders, Devils. So the Bruins would no longer be in a division with the Canadians and the Leafs and the Sens, who they've played a lot over the years. Some people make an argument they could have like an all New York division, put Buffalo in there, but realistically, if you look at the map, Buffalo is a bigger distance. Like New York State's a big area, and I'm not sure that it makes sense really to have the Sabres in those with those New York area teams. Boston to me makes more sense. So that would leave the 4 other teams from the old Atlantic division together. So Buffalo, Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto. Obviously, those 4 teams, all make sense to be so close together. Certainly, Ottawa, Montreal only a short distance apart. Toronto, Buffalo pretty close together, and then overall, they're not that far away. So that makes a lot of sense. Another division would be some teams formerly of the Metro Division all lumped together with Pittsburgh and Philly. So you get your Pennsylvania rivalry, and of course you lump in Washington and Columbus in there. And then your final division, which is kind of like a Southeast division, gets your 2 teams from Florida. So the Panthers and the Lightning lumped in with the Carolina Hurricanes. They're pretty close by, so that makes sense. And the Nashville Predators. Like I said, Nashville is geographically really not that far from those other teams that they're lumped in with. It makes more sense to have them there than it does any of those other Western divisions. So, at the end of the day, like I said, the team that's probably impacted the most here is Detroit. I don't know that the Red Wings would really like that, but to me, it's an interesting concept. Like, you could play around with the playoff format, like I said in the beginning, and see what everybody thinks. Long term, if you do expand, like I said, you could throw Quebec City in the division with Buffalo, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto. You could put Houston in with Dallas, Colorado, Vegas, Utah. You could put Atlanta could go in with like the Canes, Panthers, Lightning, Predators division. And then, of course, the Coyotes, if they return. Now, that's, I guess, one part that would be interesting, though, because the Coyotes and Houston would probably both make the most sense to be in that division with Utah, Vegas, Colorado, Dallas. So you might have to have some movement there. Dallas and Houston, obviously, you want in the same division. Arizona is pretty close to Vegas and Utah. So I'm not sure what you do there, but you'd have to do some movement, assuming those are the teams that come in down the road. Obviously, some of those don't make sense to go to the California division. They don't make sense to go to the St. Louis, Chicago, Minnesota, Detroit division. So I'm not sure what you do there, but you would have to make some adjustments, assuming that those are the 4 teams. Now, a lot of us don't have a lot of confidence right now in Alex Muriel. We don't know if he's going to give up at any point and just say, I'm not bringing the Coyotes back, and the NHL can have a new owner ready to come in to give it another try and hopefully be successful. It's a good market. So I don't know. To me, I think for a Coyotes re-emerging in the NHL, to me, is probably 7-8 years away. That's just my take, because I think it's going to be, I just without having confidence in Muriel, if that 5-year timeline, for example, has to expire, then it's probably going to take a bit more after that. So that's why I say 7-8 years, but hard to say. Like, I know Houston and Atlanta, Quebec are certainly ready. Like, Quebec, really, they've had the arena for a while. So, I mean, I don't know. I know there's hesitancy there from the NHL to go there for sure, but that could easily be accommodated in the East for sure. So let me know your thoughts on the NHL possibly realigning into 8 divisions of 4 with a new playoff format, update things. So like I said, you'd either have the 8 division winners with the top teams otherwise making up your wildcard teams, or maybe you just go to a top 1 through 8, or do you just go through 1 through 16? Complete chaos. You never know who's going to play who. I know a lot of people have been a strong proponent of that format too, but there's a lot of things to like and not like when you got to look at all the travel, and that plays a big role too. So we'll see. Either way, it'd be nice to shake things up here in the near future, in my opinion, just to get some different looks and just kind of, shake it up and give you something different to think about, and for these teams to have different options for rivalries and different options for hopefully getting into the playoffs at some point. So let me know your thoughts, and we'll talk about further down in the comments. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll get you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.